We were to leave this community, like everyone else is leaving the neighborhood, would the community miss us? And if the community is not going to miss us, maybe we should go like everyone else is going. But if we're going to be here, let's try to be here to have the greatest impact of the lives of the residents in this particular neighborhood. And we designed our ministry around meeting what were identified as the felt needs of those in our neighborhood in order to build a bridge to be able to share with them what we believe was their real need, which was a relationship with Jesus Christ. And that was the bottom line of what we wanted to do, was to be able to share Christ with our community, because we understood that people really don't care how much you know until they know that you care. And so we wanted to have a presence in that particular neighborhood to really, again, share Christ with those in that particular community. So one of the scriptures that really kind of motivated us and continues to motivate us to this day is one you're very, very familiar with, and that is Jeremiah chapter 29. And you all know the story of the children of Israel being taken into captivity by the Babylonians because of their hard-headedness and stubbornness and failure to worship God. And so they find themselves in this foreign land. The prophets are telling them this will be short-lived. You won't be in this situation a long time, so just hang on. In a couple of years, you will be back into business and life as normal. And so God sends Jeremiah in Jeremiah chapter 29 to write this letter to those who are in exile, to let them know you're not going to be there a short period of time. You're going to be there for a while. He says in Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 4, "This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to those I have carried into Babylon." Notice verse 5. "Build houses," all right? So don't get caught up, because you're not going to be there a couple of years. Airbnb ain't going to do it for you, right? Build houses. You're going to be there for a while. Settle down. Get used to the surroundings that are around you, even in a very ungodly environment. Settle down. Plant gardens. That takes time. Eat what they produce. Marry. Marry and have sons and daughters. In fact, you're going to be there so long, you're going to find wives for your sons and daughters to give in marriage, so that they too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number there, and do not decrease. And as we begin to look at that particular passage, it's rather interesting that God has called and has placed the children of Israel in the midst of a very ungodly environment. The Babylonians were very ruthless and ungodly. And he tells them, what I want you to do while you are in Babylon, while you are in the midst of this very challenging situation, is I want you to influence the culture around you, okay? Because I have two things that I want to do in Babylon. Not only do I want to get your attention, but you know what? Through your lifestyle and through what I want to accomplish in you, I want to get the Babylonians' attention, right? I want you to so engage in that culture. In fact, what I really want you to do is I want you to leave Babylon better than you found it. I want you to leave that neighborhood, that community, that context better than what you found it. And in order to do that, you have really got to engage in the lives of the residents and the people in that community. What does it look like when the people of God go to the PTA meeting? What does it look like when the people of God date and marry? What does it look like when the people of God raise the children? I want the people of Babylon to actually see that in action. And so one of the things that we are always trying to do is recognizing that we are oftentimes in a very challenging situation. What's reflective in South Dallas is typical of what goes on in inner city communities all across our country. A lot of hopelessness, a lot of despair, a lot of challenges. Schools are in crisis. The list goes on and on and on. And so one of the things that we had to do was ask ourselves, what can we as a church do to make a difference in the community where God has called us to serve? And so we do that through a number of different ways, and certainly you being ministers to missions and engage in missions, you understand it, because a lot of times what we've understand is sometimes churches don't get it. You'd be surprised, but a lot of churches don't get their responsibility for reaching out beyond the walls of the church to really impact the culture around them. Many of them commute in, leave and they commute out. Their attitude is, look, we coming into your neighborhood to worship. We ain't gonna bother y'all. Y'all don't bother us. We're gonna leave the community just like we found it. So when we gone, y'all can have at it, right? And so they really don't understand what their role and their responsibility is, really to change and impact the culture around them. And so some of the things that we began to do is we understood that one of the things that we wanted to do was make sure we were in an indigenous church, that we were in an indigenous church. We were right off of, we were now off of 45, but we were on Irving. And we did not want to be a church that was a commuter-in church, where we commuted in on Sunday and commuted out right after service. We really wanted to raise up leaders in that community who understood it was their responsibility to change and transform those around them and their families and their neighborhood, so forth and so on. So one of the things that we wanted to do, again, was be passionate about how do we begin reaching those who are within our community and raising those individuals up to be leaders in the church and leaders in their particular community. We recognize that it was a challenge because even now we are in a community that has an income of less than $16,000 a year, household income, less than $16,000 a year. Over 90% of the children don't have a dad in the home. 56% of grandparents are raising at least one grandchild. So very challenging situations with very little resources when you look at the needs in the neighborhood over against the resources available in the community. And so one of the things that we began doing is really about urban-suburban partnership with our churches. How do we partner with churches to bring them to bear, to understand what the needs in their context, what the need in our context was, and how could we work together with the local church to help really build up the community. A lot of times what churches do, have a tendency to do, is they see the needs in inner city communities and they want to parachute in and parachute out, right? So they want to come in for Christmas and do some great things, but they're out. They want to come in Thanksgiving, provide baskets, and they out. Come in, do Easter egg hunts, do that, and they're out. They parachute in and they parachute out. But what we were trying to convince churches is when you work with the local church in the midst of these contexts, what you do is you empower the church and help undergird their credibility in a neighborhood. So it's not XYZ Church in Rockwall or Mesquite or wherever doing the work. It is the local church there bringing those resources to bear on the needs of that particular community. And so I think it's always important that the local church in that context, because when those churches go back to those areas, it is the urban church that is there having to meet the needs of those in their community. So begin working with our local church partners to help us to have a vision, to help us launch a vision that would reach the community. And I would also say that the challenge is also on the urban church to make sure their vision is large enough that they can bring other partners in to help them to accomplish what needs to be accomplished in their context. So some of the ministries that we were engaging in, because we are in a poor community, but there are great needs, is some of the ministries that we were engaging in were around relief kinds of things. And so we recognized that we were in a food desert. And we had a very challenging situation where we had a large homeless population, and there was a need. And so we just started on Saturday mornings out with providing sandwiches to many homeless individuals that would come by the church. And eventually, that started out moving beyond Saturday and working with our church partners to Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so today, moving from when we started 15 to 20 meals a week on Saturday mornings to the homeless, we now serve 5 days a week and around 13,000 meals a month through the Cornerstone Kitchen. So started out in our small building, but now have a 10,000 square foot kitchen that is really dedicated to the needs of meeting the hunger needs of residents in our community, and really helping us to build relationships with those who are homeless. Again, coming to hear their stories, looking them in the face, getting to know their names, understanding their journey, just getting to know individuals and asking ourselves, what resources can we bring to bear that will help us to meet the needs of those in our community? Recognize that many individuals on the streets did not feel good about themselves, and a lot of times they didn't feel good about themselves because they smelled bad, right? Nobody wanted to be around them and things of that nature. So we opened up several years ago our clothing closet and shower complex, where we serve about 1,000 unduplicated individuals each month, where they can come in and get a change of clothes once a month, but they can take a shower anytime that we're open, right, to feel good, to get cleaned up. We have people come in and do haircuts and things of that nature, again, around relief kinds of things. Realizing that many in the neighborhood that we were working with would oftentimes wait to what was a cold becomes the pneumonia, and then they're off to Parkland Hospital as their ER, as their primary care physician, because they would not go to the hospital under other circumstances. And the challenge of that, of waking to what a cold becomes a pneumonia, if it's a cold, you can treat it with a $2 pill. Probably with pneumonia, it's about $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, right, as you go through all of that. And so having medical care readily accessible and available to those in the community, working through our church partners around relief kinds of things, meeting the needs and partnering with other churches to bring those resources to bear in the midst of our community. Again, as I gave the statistic of realizing that 97% of the boys or children don't have a dad in the home, and you have 56% of grandparents raising grandchildren, we begin to realize that in the summertime, a lot of our children were in an unsafe environment. And not only were they in an unsafe environment, but they were oftentimes struggling and slipping back educationally. And so we wanted to design programs that were around mitigating around summer learning loss, and how do we help kids stay on target during the school year. Because if they're coming from single-parent homes, many times those mothers, when they get off work, don't have time to help their children. Grandmama don't know how to help their children. And so really working with church partners and others to provide a safe environment where kids can come to the church and have their needs met around educational opportunities. And we begin to ask ourselves, we begin to realize that kids in this neighborhood needed to be in a safe environment every single day. So Monday through Thursday, we provide aftercare. In the summertime, Monday through Friday, we provide a full day camp for children in the neighborhood free of charge. And then on Saturdays, we provide a Saturday morning camp. And then on Sundays, they can be in Sunday school. So we wanted to provide opportunities for kids in our neighborhood to be in church every single day. Every single day. They can be in a loving environment. They can have a hot meal every single day. And more importantly, they have an opportunity to hear about Christ every single day that that they're there. We, again, mitigating around needs, realizing that we were ministering to our homeless, trying to help them to steer clear. Oftentimes they would not listen, ended up in jail. While they're in jail, you get these letters like they were written by the Apostle Paul. And you ask yourself, why in the world could you not put all of this in practice while you were on the streets? But what we realized was that a lot of men were getting out of prison, and they were reoffending because they didn't really have structure. The family didn't want to have anything to do with them, and that was the only way that they knew was a life of crime to survive on the streets. And so we opened up several years ago in partnership with Lake Point Church, what's known as Trinity Restoration Ministries. And what that is, it's on our campus. We have an apartment complex with around 32 beds in phase one and a couple of other phases that we work with that are around working with men who are coming out of prison. So we're working right with the prison population while they are in prison. And Esther's unit, we actually have a dorm in prison. And the men in those dorms are really slated to come to us once they get released from prison, to give them a safe environment where they can not only come in and have housing, get back on their feet, get their ID and things of that nature, but helps to reduce the recidivism rate so they're not feeling like they need to reoffend in order to do survival. We also have a woman's component called the Well, that again we're working with women who are making that transition coming out of prison. We are engaged in realizing that in our high school that we have a number of teen moms in the community, and many of those teen moms were couch surfing. Many of them had been in some very traumatic situations, and were oftentimes in vulnerable, unsafe environments. And so we work with a ministry and partner that we allow and work with on our campus through partnership called Viola's House. And that is a house where we have 6 beds, where we're able to work with teen moms who are transitioning or who are homeless and pregnant, 17 to 21 years old. In COVID, we began to realize that many of these single moms out there, or moms with children under 3 years old, had a difficulty getting access to Pampers and things of that nature. So we started a Pamper distribution program and brought in a parenting program because a lot of them struggle with parenting issues and things of that nature. And now we're in partnership with our Viola's House, which is on our campus, serving in the neighborhood. We do about 400 moms a day in Zoom classes around parenting help, how they can be successful in raising their kids. And they get a voucher when we have an upscale thrift store where they can go in and buy cribs and baby and bassinets and clothes and actually get free diapers and milk if needed for their kids as long as they're 3 years and younger. We love working with people who are in crisis and people who are going through a hard time, the homeless, guys coming out of prison, young girls who are homeless and pregnant, going through a difficult time. But we began asking ourselves, what would it look like if we would spend more time around investing in children, right? Doing more preparing the next generation as opposed to repairing adults. What would it look like if we would invest in preparing children as opposed to always trying to repair adults? And so we have on our campus what's known as the King's Academy. And it is a private Christian school that serves right now about 100 kids. This is our 5th year. Kids get pre-K3 for kinder all the way up to 6th grade this year, with the goal of adding a grade every year till we get to 12th grade, of how do we as a church begin ministering to the needs of the next generation, preparing those adults so they're not having correct bad behavior, trying to get again ahead of the curve. Again, another kind of relief ministry. Again, as we've been in this work about 35 years, a little over 35 years, one of the things that we've been, again, asking ourselves, again, I think we need to always evaluate where we are and what we're doing and why we're doing it, is begin asking ourselves, how can we make the ministry sustainable around not only doing relief things, but development things that make the community better, and not only the people, but the whole culture and the context where we're located. And so one of the things that we did was we started what we call the Cornerstone Center of Economic Opportunity, and that is around, we ask our community who have a passion and a desire to start their own business, right? And we realized what we would get was a bunch of wantrepreneurs, and we had the challenge of transitioning them to entrepreneurs, right? They want to start a business, but they don't have the skills and the talents and the gifts. And we thought we would have about 15 to show up. The first day when we offered it to the neighborhood, about 75 to show up, and that was just when COVID hit, kind of put it on pause. And so we have about 150 entrepreneurs that we're working with in the neighborhood that we do in partnership with Grace Bible Church about how do we go about developing these entrepreneurs, a lot of times who have gifts, skills, and talents, but they don't know how to monetize those things in order that they can make a living off of their gifts, skills, and talents. And so we realized as we've done that a fifth of them want to do something related to construction, a fifth something in the nursing, medical field, a fifth something nonprofit-wise, and then a fifth other, and then a fifth wanted to do something related to the food industry, right? And they had a gift. They could bake, they could cook, they could cater. They had that particular gift and skill. The challenge we had was in our communities, there was no commercial kitchen. And so a lot of times they could do things, but they had to do it out of their home, which meant that they could not expand their business model because it was not done in a certified commercial kitchen. So they could not expand their business model. And so we had a space available, and we thought, what would it look like if we would transition one of our spaces to a certified commercial kitchen to make it affordable for people to rent space so that they can have a space where if they wanted to cater or bake something that they wanted to get to market and things of that nature. And so we were able to work, and that was what the news article was about, to provide a commercial kitchen space for our community residents so that they could, again, expand their business model and make a livable wage for the community. Across the street from us was an old restaurant that we are in the process of designing and planning. So not only will they have the space to have the place where they cook and things of that nature, but in fact, some of the napkins we had was from Eatsy's. And what we're going to do is we're going to put Eatsy's on a budget in the neighborhood, is what the idea is, because that will give us an opportunity to work with a lot of entrepreneurs specializing in their area and bringing it together under one roof in a restaurant, really to help develop people and to provide them economic opportunity. Another thing that we began to realize in our community, and it's typical across inner cities, is this issue of gentrification, right, where people who have lived in neighborhoods for a long time are getting pushed out as developers want to come back into the city and closer to downtown. And it's urban renewal taking place. But what we begin to realize is oftentimes urban renewal equals urban removal, right? That people who have been in communities for a long time are getting pushed out of neighborhoods. And so one of the things that we have are real passionate about is buying up property in our communities, so that we can make housing affordable to those who want to be there. The housing affordable to those who want to be here, kind of like out of Jeremiah, build houses, right? Invest in that particular neighborhood. And so we're real passionate about taking dilapidated properties that were in the hands of slumlords and trying to get control of those properties and making those affordable to the community. In fact, if you Google in the Dallas Morning News, what do you Google? But there was a guy anyway, and his name will come to me in a minute. Stuart McCray was a slumlord of that nature and had 3 apartment complexes that were very notorious for drugs and prostitution, and just was a community crisis, a community nuisance, three in our particular neighborhood. And we went to him and asked him if he would be willing to sell those properties to the community around hopes that we can begin cleaning up that drug activity in the community. He refused to sell those properties. And so the courts got involved and was able, because they were a community nuisance utilizing a lot of community resources, took control of those properties, and through their receivership program, gave those properties for management to our church. And so now we are managing those properties, and properties that the state officials couldn't get out and the Dallas police couldn't get out, those drug dealers. I got an old woman that's a bulldog, and you drive by those apartments now, and everybody is out of them. Was able to clean up those apartments that we're now rehabbing around developing. Oh, thank you so much. Around developing for affordable housing in that particular community. One thing that we're also passionate about is really, and I think this is one of the things that they are challenged to do in Babylon, is to settle down, get to know the people, right? Dialogue with people. And so in dialoguing with people, we begin to see what some of the needs are and ask ourselves again, how can we meet those needs? And so we were in a food desert. People were talking about they had to catch a bus, 1 or 2 buses to go to the grocery store and things of that nature. And so we ask ourselves, what would it look like if we were to put in a convenience store in the neighborhood? Many of the residents said the convenience store in the community, all they did was specialize in drugs, not drugs, alcohol sales, cigarettes, and lottery tickets. And if they had a grocery store in the neighborhood, it would help them so much without having to go to bus rides, getting home in the afternoon and realizing I need milk, and trying to get milk to my family, since many of them don't have transportation. And so we worked to put in our South Point Market, which is a low-cost convenience store. Kind of what we wanted to do was 7-Eleven convenience at a Walmart prices, so that people in the neighborhood could have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, which is a whole nother subject of why we deal with so much diabetes and heart issues because of lack of access in our food desert. But providing those items that really are around helping to mitigate around those issues health-wise, but providing an opportunity to meet a need of those in the community. Talking to the community and doing a study with the State Fair of Texas, we found out that we had children in the neighborhood who didn't go to school for no other reason than they didn't have access to clean clothes. And so we thought, let's try to put a laundromat in the neighborhood. And so we were able to open up a laundromat, the first one in 30 years in that particular community. Wanting access further to the community, we began working with our local schools. And so there are 4 elementary schools, 2 high schools, and 1 middle school in the community. And what we do is we work in some aspect in every single school in that particular community, again, to have the presence of Christ and let the community know that we are there and that we are concerned about them. And so again, just kind of passionate about the Jeremiah chapter 29 passage, where God puts them in an environment not only to get his people's attention, but really to influence and change and make a difference in that Babylonian culture. he goes on, he says, pray to the Lord for it. Seek the peace. Also seek the peace and the prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. That we are challenged really to seek the peace and for our neighborhoods to be better. A lot of times, as you know, people have challenges in their community. The first thing they don't want to do is exit the neighborhood. And I think instead of running from the neighborhood, we ought to be change agents in that particular community that God has called us to. Because as it gets better, then everything gets better in that community.